Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Pro Pilot Playbook Podcast, where we bring you the hacks, the tips, the tricks, the shortcuts to get through your flight training in the fastest and cheapest means possible to get you in the right seat of that airliner as quick as possible. I mean, there is no better way than, the methods and the stuff Mike and myself, Sean, talk about here on the podcast. We've been gone for a little while, but, I don't know. It's busy out there right now.
Yeah, it sure is, but it sure is great to be back. And now that we're back in the groove here, I think you'll be seeing a little bit more of us here more frequently. But thanks everybody for hanging in there. The channel, despite some us taking a couple months off, has really grown exponentially. So we're excited to get some new content out there, and it's never been a better time to become a pilot. So we've got a lot to discuss in this podcast.
Yeah. And actually, this podcast, it's kind of a little milestone for us. This is episode number 40. So this is 40th one of these we've done.
Great.
And we've bounced around to several different subjects. If this is your first time joining us, I mean, we've got, we're kind of biased, but we think we've got some really good content out there for somebody who's an aspiring pilot. All the stuff that your instructor is not going to talk about, either because he just doesn't know, or it's just not part of the curriculum of something you would discuss. And we're bringing you all the behind the lines information you need to get out there and not only save money but get through it quickly.
Right.
And I just mentioned it's been busy. The management company that I run, or actually we've got partners now that I'm part of. We just took on 2 more jets. So in the last couple, I've got 2 additional type ratings.
Wow.
In the last, what's it been since we've posted an episode? Probably about 45 days, maybe going on, I don't know, at least 2 months, right? It's been maybe even close
probably
to
before
3.
Christmas.
Yeah. So in the last less than 90 days, I've got 2 additional type ratings, which is that's not typical. And
no,
they're both mid-cabin size jets. So they were.
What'd you get? The Sovereign, and what was the other one?
Yeah. So the Sovereign, which is the mid-size, it's a CE 680, and this airplane is amazing. I mean, it's a 30,000 pound airplane, but it has the capability to land and take off in less than 3,000 feet, and take off from almost the middle of the United States and go all the way to Hawaii. Definitely from California to Hawaii, but it cruises at 47,000 feet. And yeah, this thing, it's got some impressive numbers on it. And then the other one was the Hawker 800 850,
Oh yeah,
which is the British tank.
Yeah, I've got some Hawker time myself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You flew the Hawker too. Yep.
Yeah, that's a nice airplane. Yeah, we had a customer looking at that Sovereign aircraft, and we were running some numbers on it, and it was just staggering. I mean, this particular customer went into this private development in Florida where the runway's like less than 4,000 feet, and
I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, he could take off out of there with 8 passengers and go for 2 hours or something crazy. I'm like, Jesus, man, is this even a real airplane?
I know it's
for you see that stuff with Falcons and Globals and things with leading edge devices can do those, but in a mid-size airplane, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's every day the numbers. So I mean, I've been typed on it less than a month, this one, but I mean, just everything like the ref speeds coming into land, even it's just nuts. I'm used to flying these smaller, high performance swept wing. Well, I mean, this thing's swept wing too, but like that Premier jet, that thing's like a little sports car. I mean,
right.
The lowest ref speed in that thing's like 115, and most of them are way beyond that. But this thing has a ref speed, even with some weight on it. You're landing at like 93 knots, and that's a big airplane to be going at. It doesn't feel right going that slow on short final,
right.
It feels like you're going to fall out of the sky, but it's a pretty neat airplane.
Yeah, man, that's great. We're it's funny. A lot of our viewers now will be probably watching this next week, so they're going to know the outcome of the big game. But
Oh
we're
yeah.
both from Cincinnati, and
Yep.
the
Super Bowl
Townsend,
Sunday. Who
yeah,
day? Who day?
Townsend complete hysteria right now. So we're filming
Yes.
this on Saturday, the Saturday before the big game, and yeah, well, we don't know what the fate is, but boy, we're hoping for the first win and it's franchise history. So we'll see what
Yep.
happens.
Yep. Third time we've been in the Super Bowl. What was it, 82 and 89 or something?
Yeah, it was
And
traumatic loss of my childhood, man. I was like
yeah.
10 or something. Yeah, it was a bad deal. Bad
Yeah.
deal, man.
Definitely.
But,
I'm not
yeah.
a huge sports guy myself, but it's hard not to get, excited and, all the fun, good energy, out of it.
Yep, a lot of corporate pilots out in LA this weekend,
Yep.
for that event. We did some preliminary planning for that. We were gonna go out and then didn't end up doing it. But just for our viewers, some of the interesting things that goes into that. It's nice that LA has all those airports because it's a big help.
Yep.
But I called about 30 minutes after the Bengals won the playoff game to put them into the Super Bowl to start making reservations to bring our aircraft in, and a ton of slots were taken. In fact,
Yep.
The Van Nuys Airport, which is probably the busiest corporate airport in
Sure.
Southern California, which is really the one to go into for this event, they could not accept any Monday departures, and this is 2 weeks ahead of time, and
Right.
I called 1 hour after the Bengals win. So I guess a lot of these corporate sponsors and stuff, they've all got their jets going in there, even regardless of who's in it,
Right.
Because I thought I'd get anything I wanted, I'd be, in top, but they have a slot program in effect where
Yep.
they only they control the amount of business aircraft that can flow in and out. So you have to have a reserved time to get in there. And then there's also parking issues and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
very interesting. Vegas, as far as Vegas, they even have flow for the Super Bowl, flow control. But yeah,
a lot of people go to Vegas. They can do all the sports book stuff, and
it's awesome. Yeah,
that Sovereign I was just talking about, it's actually out there right now. Me and another guy got typed in it. I flew a good bit last week, so he took it out there, and he's not as experienced with all the the slots and dealing with all this kind of stuff, these big events. So he's been blowing me up here. Every 2 hours I get another update on, well, they're moving our slot to blah 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 blah. They're out at Long Beach. And it was I think it was just under $4,000 just to be able to park there for the event.
Yeah.
That was the event fee on top of all their normal crazy
fees,
charges they have out there. But
and everything has to be paid up front. Like,
yep. Oh yeah, we paid that before we even left. Yes, exactly. Yep. That's
they're not
point.
messing around, man. But but for the viewers, when you get involved in corporate aviation, you'll get to go to a lot of these big events, and there's a lot
I was
of
in Tampa last year for the Super Bowl in Tampa. I sat in Tampa all weekend, and I was kind of surprised how big of a deal it is out in LA, because Tampa last year wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, the ramp had more airplanes on it than normal, but it wasn't like nuts like LA is. And I don't know. And these arenas don't even hold as many people as like a NASCAR game or something, which is complete freaking chaos in the sky.
Yeah.
But I think most of the people in NASCAR drive in.
Yeah, that's true. You know what is awesome, or what is unique about these last two Super Bowls, is the home team was in it.
Yeah,
so,
I know. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So what that does, that cuts the air traffic in half, really, because half the fans live there, right? So you're getting in half the airplanes. It's really really an interesting thing. Yeah. The World Series is like that too. Big deal. But cool. Well,
we've gotten off. Yeah. Well, sorry. I was just going to say we've gotten off topic here a little bit.
Yeah.
We were going to name this podcast number 40. We were going to name it something about the, maybe still a shortage or, still short pilot, something like that. But we've been getting a lot of, this has been the big topic here. The pilot shortage, it continues. And what's funny was during the pandemic, if you were looking on the Facebook groups and, the general word among pilots, it was about 50-50. there was a good portion of us that were starting to think, oh, this pandemic's going to level everything out. For the next few years, there's not going to be a shortage because the industry just got wrecked, and everything will balance out. I
Right.
never, personally, I never had that opinion. Every time I heard that viewpoint stated, I would immediately come back and say, no, 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 you're missing everything here. What happened was there was a switch flipped that shut down all hiring and immediately laid off a bunch of guys because they didn't have the capacity. They didn't need all these guys sitting around getting
Right.
paid. Well, you can't just flip that switch back on again and bring
Right.
everybody back instantaneously. You got to go to training. You got to, recurrent.
Right.
Hiring department has to be spun back up again. You got to let everybody know you are hiring, and you got to get their crap together and put in their resume and get ready for an interview. So all that stuff, that train leaves the station at a much slower rate than just flipping the switch to shut it all down. Secondly, the other thing that happened was you have people stopping flight training. So
Right.
it wasn't like all the pilots were still lining up in the queue waiting for jobs or anything. Most of that flight training got stopped.
Yeah.
The second, I guess, response to B, or the second part of that would be you also had like mom and pop flight schools that
Right.
couldn't take not having students and just shut down and said, get rid of it. We're done. Get rid of it.
Yeah. And
And then the third one there's
go ahead.
one other thing, there's also some of those kids out there who, were maybe just starting training, or had their eye on it, and after everything went south there during the pandemic, saw how fragile this industry was and said, you know what, maybe I don't want to be a pilot because
Right.
there's more than likely going to be another one of these things, and just
Yeah.
gave up on it.
Gave
So
up.
yeah, the pilot shortage didn't go anywhere. What it's happened was it's compounded. It's gotten
Compounded,
worse and more complicated. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry, Mike.
yeah.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just you might have touched on this, but all the majors pre-COVID were gearing up for this pilot shortage. So they were hiring, X amount of pilots per month. Say, just for a given number, each airline was hiring 100 pilots a month. Well, not only did they lay off, but for all those months, they stopped hiring. So now all of a sudden demand snaps back. And not only do you got to retrain and everything you're saying, but you missed like 10 months of hiring because you
Right.
were laying off. So yeah, it's just really been crazy, and you're starting to see it. You saw it over Christmas. There's a great article that I have here. Headline is, you could Google this headline: airline cancellations aren't the only travel industry problem. Try finding 40,000 new pilots. To fathom that number, 40,000. I think most majors have 10 to 15,000 pilots. So this is like,
Delta has around 10,000 pilots, I think.
yeah, America maybe 14. So this is like 4 times the amount of an entire airline they need to hire. So basically what this article says is, longtime airline analysts suggest that the industry may need 35,000 to 40,000 new pilots over the next 10 years. So these are based on majors, and this is not including growth. The majors are growing only at like 4% a year, and I'm summarizing this article. But these discount airlines are rapidly like 20% a year. That brings us to actually, I forgot to discuss this with you off camera, Sean, but the other big gossip this week was Frontier purchased Spirit
Oh,
Airlines.
yeah.
So
They're merging. Yeah, I saw all the memes coming across Facebook of Spirit and Frontier merging.
yeah, man. And I guess Frontier bought Spirit. So I'm just wondering how many coats of white paint it's going to take to paint over that bright yellow.
Right.
It's gonna
I
be
heard
crazy.
the deal might fall through though, because
Oh.
one of them was already trying to charge the other one a bunch of hidden fees and.
Hidden bags fees. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that just to briefly discuss that thing, not to get off topic, but what that from a aviator standpoint, mergers and acquisitions can be difficult, but what it does mean is more bases for everybody.
Yep.
So if you get hired now at the combined Frontier Spirit, you can now live in those cities as a pilot that either airline services. So it does create a better hiring environment. For instance, if you lived in, uh, Cincinnati is a good example. We have no Frontier flights out of Cincinnati. I'm sorry, we have no Spirit flights out
No
of Cincinnati.
Spirit, right?
But they go out of Columbus like crazy, right? So you could maybe be, and I don't know their bases. I'm making this up, but you could probably be based in Columbus. But if you worked in Cincinnati, you'd have to fly out there. Well, now that we have Frontier service in Cincinnati, now it's one big airline that
Right.
allows way more applicants for that to be an attractive job. And Sean, it's important to live in your base, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The quality of life, that's something we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Flying the big shiny machine and chasing money is only good for so long. Then you start realizing, hey, I want to schedule and I want to live where I want to live, so.
Right.
Yep.
And back to that article about the 40,000 pilots over 10 years, which may even be a low estimate. So what that means for the area of aviation that we work in, the corporate aviation, is that this puts a huge strain on corporate aviation, because in general, big airline jobs pay more than corporate jobs. So that does is it sucks all the pilots out of the corporate aviation into the airline flying world, which causes enormous hiring in the corporate aviation. And I think Sean and I will both say there has never been a better time to be a corporate pilot. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
Right.
it's like people are offering corporate pilots jobs once a week. I was approaching an FBO. I mean, after talking to somebody for 5 minutes of what would have been really a good job, that, hey, are you looking or whatever? I mean, it's crazy, and if
3 days ago, I got offered a job on the spot down in Kissimmee.
Yeah.
We pulled in there in the Sovereign, and I forget the name of the company now. It's one of the bigger management companies. They have jets everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they came up to us and offered me and the co-pilot both a job, and I'm like,
crazy.
No.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's obviously a really good thing for us, a young pilot getting into the business. I mean, these are jobs that we wouldn't have dreamed of getting 20 years ago, or let alone, I mean, we super competitive to get, I guess I should say, let alone just now somebody's just approaching you in an FBO trying to poach you. And forget if you're typed in the airplane that they're flying, holy crap.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I have my recurrent training coming up next week, and it's been rescheduled because there was some issues at the training center with check airmen, or basically people that are qualified to give our tests, because I'm hearing that turnover at these training centers is crazy. Because
those guys are leaving, and there's something else that when I just got that Sovereign type, I realized there's something else that happens at these training centers I didn't necessarily realize happens. They have the way they have their contracts and customers designed, like especially with some of these international contracts, these big money contracts at like a flight safety or semi-flight or whatever, some of the other ones. They'll call up from Canada and say, hey, our guys are about to expire. We need a slot. Can you fit us in? And then they'll fly these guys in and stick them in the simulator in the middle of the night and bump the people's schedules around that are already there in training. This happened to me. And one of the instructors was explaining it to me that, well, we have certain clients we do this for. And I'm like, I've been coming here for 20 years. I've never heard this before. He's like, well, it's just getting really crazy right now. We don't have, they are overwhelmed with the amount of people they're trying to train.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Let's touch on, there's more people right now buying private jets than in the history of, I haven't even read this in writing. This is just my own observation. It is crazy. Like the values of these airplanes, these used private jets, have doubled, almost all of
Yep.
them. I mean, it's insane.
In the last 6 months, we have at least 5 customers. My company, we manage 14 jets.
Yeah.
We have, I think there's 12, 13 of us pilots that take care of them all. We manage them and fly them. And at least 5 of those customers that we've picked up in the last 6 months, when I say customers, I mean jets. 5 of these jets that we've picked up here in the last 6 months, they're all new to aviation. They've never owned a jet before.
Right.
This is, we're in uncharted waters all around here. It's nuts. And, this is, before I forget to mention this, we talked about this in the program we sell, in the Pro Pilot Playbook program. We mentioned this, and this information when we recorded that particular segment was going on 2 years ago now. And the quote from the article, or the data from the article, showed that in the next 10 years, so now in the next 8 years, there are more people, these are just numbers, more people, professional pilots, retiring from their career than there are pilots in the training pipeline to become pilots. And that doesn't mean that all those pilots in training are going to become professionals. Some of those guys, people, women, men, women, are getting their license just to take their kids up in an airplane ride on the weekends or something,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're going to be professional pilots. So we are headed towards, it's unprecedented.
It is. Yeah. And if you're aspiring pilot and you're just starting in your career, or you're thinking about doing it in this podcast, that you're hearing this stuff that we're talking about is exciting you, I would say you're probably understating what this is. I mean, this is literally the best time in the history of flying for you guys to jump in. And the excitement is real. I mean, the opportunity is unprecedented. And in fact, Sean and I are just talking. I mean, we're just jealous, really jealous.
Right. Yeah.
It was so hard when we started. Man.
Yes.
And nobody wants to hear about that. But I mean, for perspective, it was much more difficult than it is now.
Right. I want to read, I know we both have, just to back up all this stuff we're saying, so we're not just a couple of guys sitting here rattling off
bragging
stuff. We both have some articles here we want to just mention, and some other stuff going on in the hiring of some of the airlines. But we've been telling everybody, a lot of this podcast is getting questions in from people. If you have a question, you can email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com.
Yep.
We've been answering your question here on the podcast. It seems to be a really effective way to get to exactly what you guys are wanting to know. But and those questions have been piling up as we haven't been getting to anybody. And we want to do it. It's
so keep
difficult.
sending them.
Anyway,
if you sent one in 2 months ago and we haven't got to it, doesn't mean we're not going to get
it. It doesn't mean we're not going to. But this guy, Drew sent us a question, and we're jumping out of line here. This question just came in 2 days ago.
Okay.
So he's jumping out of line, but it's directly related to what we're talking about. So I want to go ahead and do Drew's question, and then we can back up his answer, or we can answer him by backing up some of the stuff we're going to talk about here. So here's the question from Drew. My name's Andrew. 2 months ago, I quit my job after saving. Hang on, let me move this thing so I can read it easier here. After saving penny by penny for 2 years to be able to chase down the dream of being a pilot, and I'm finished up my private now. I just want to say thank you to you guys who keep the dream alive for so many of us who get discouraged and hit roadblocks. There is still a lot of negativity that floats around from people who never made it or have had bad experiences, and
haters.
And can be discouraging for new students to see. And I remember those people. We can talk about this. For those of us that are thinking it's impossible or they can't do it, trust me. Plan it out, research, and pull the trigger on your dream. You'd be amazed how happy you are once you're fully immersed. The best feelings in life are often on the other side of the fear. Taking the comfortable route of the desk job will only have you looking up in the sky at 60 and wondering what stopped you.
This guy's good, man.
Yeah, do what you want with your life. I am currently 25 and finally going for something meaningful. I have a few years before I'm fully in the flying world, career-wise. My main question being, do you see the shortage in job opportunities extending down the line for people like me who are in the initial stages of training? I hear a lot of concerns that by the time some of us get to the ratings and the requirements, the shortage will be gone and we'll be out of luck.
No.
Would love some industry insight. Would also love to be answered on the podcast, or maybe have a little guy like me come on and give my insights to the training world. Nowadays from a student's perspective, could be fun. Keep doing the great things, and blue skies to both of you, Andrew. All right, so that was actually pretty cool. A little inspirational
really well
thing he's
written.
got going there.
That guy might be too smart to be a pilot, really.
Yeah, right. Go work
Awesome.
for Tony Robbins or something.
Yeah.
But no, the regret thing, that's real. You know what? I mean, we've actually talked about that in podcasts before, Mike. How many guys, oh, you're a pilot. Oh, I wanted to be a pilot when I was. I mean, we've already covered that maybe in more than one episode. That is real, absolutely.
Yes.
But to answer your question here, Andrew, no, you have nothing to worry about. Plus, if you've already quit your job and you've jumped in with this thing, both feet, and you're running, not walking, you already got your private done. What are you talking about here? You're talking about less than 2 years. You're going to be sitting in the right seat of an airliner. So I don't know. No, even if it was 5 years from now, and we just told you some of the data,
Yeah.
the shortage isn't going anywhere at all.
No, this is a 10-year problem, and according to this article that I'm reading right here, but I think it even extends way beyond that. And that's not including growth and more people wanting to fly, and the emergence of future business for the airlines. I mean, I think there's no question once you dig into these numbers that this is not it. If you use our method, it's going to take only a year or two for you to get into flying professionally. So you're really, you're just on the cusp of all this. It's fantastic. It really is.
Right. Yeah. Like, Andrew, I don't even know if you even know what we're talking about, but that program that we sell, and this whole podcast was not meant to be a commercial, but there are things that we talk about in that program, or you can discover on your own. It's no secret. It's just Mike and I put it all together in one spot and made it easy. There's tricks and hacks. There's shortcuts to doing this quicker than just showing up once a week at some mom and pop flight school, out in the middle of Nebraska or something. There's way faster ways. But anyway, you don't have to just take our word for it. What we're seeing out there. Here's some headlines to some of the articles that I've saved just across the 24 different Facebook groups I'm on related to pilot stuff. Right here. It just says an airline, but one of the airlines was offering more than $180,000 in bonuses to retain a pilot. So if you came in under this program and you stuck there the whole time, it could mean an additional $180,000 in bonuses. This is some regional.
Right.
American Airlines is now offering regional pilots $150,000 to not leave. Delta and Endeavor, of course, American was always, we're talking about flow through, switching gears, the flow through programs we've mentioned before with American Airlines having some of their regional carriers having flow through, which means you fly for their regional. And then when you get to seniority, you move up from that regional directly to American Airlines with no interview, no nothing. The company's already aligned, their company policies, their, your day-to-day of how you do everything, your books, there's nothing unless and it's all based on seniority. So you'll see it coming, it's whatever, you spend a year and a half, 2 years as a captain at this regional. And then one day you're going to start your training in that 7.3 or 7.5 over at American. It's a flow through. Anyway, Delta just started doing that. Delta was not doing that. They had some of their regionals that would guarantee you an interview at Delta Airlines, at Delta Mainline, if you flew for
Right.
one of their subsidiary regionals. But now they have the flow through, just like American does. American has it at two different regionals, I believe. But Delta, this is Endeavor, and Delta now have flow through, which that's great news. Delta Airlines, another big headline in Delta Mainline, the largest airline on the planet. Mike, what's that one? It's a big one. This is, and I was so excited. This came through. This information's about, I don't know. It's
January 10th.
What was it? January 10th?
10th.
So this is awesome because this was one of my big things when we were putting together the ProPop playbook, when we were brainstorming this thing and building it out, the outline of how, the course was going to be and everything 2.5 years ago. This was my big thing. And Mike was like, I don't know if we should tell people that. I'm like, no, this is the meat and potatoes of the program, man. Yeah. This is what we're talking about with faster and cheaper. And Mike was a little reluctant. But when I saw this, article come out, the news, when it dropped, I'm like, yeah, nailed it. And that news is what, Mike?
It's Delta drops the requirement for 4-year degrees for pilots, for really any degree for pilots. So they were the holdout, and some people would say it's the most prestigious job in aviation. So they've always been a long time. I mean, ever since we had a twinkle in our eye to become an airline pilot, they would say, yes, you need all these ratings, but if you want to work for an airline, you got to have a 4-year degree.
A major.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what that degree is in. You just need a degree. And it was always kind of dumb, really, because you could have a degree in veterinarian studies.
Yep.
And they would hire you. That you just had to have it.
Yeah.
And the qualifications to get a job there were so much more stringent, hour requirements and experience and ratings and all this stuff. The degree really just didn't make any sense. And finally, as Sean said, it caught up to us.
Right. Well, I mean, I get it. I understand the idea of having a degree in a professional role like that, but it's a box that gets checked that, and basically that instead of having a degree, that box could have a sentence next to it: ability to stick with things, get them done, and figure things out. Check. Yes. Well, how do we measure that? He has a 4-year degree. Perfect. Put that on there. That's how we did it. But now there's the need for pilots is outweighing that requirement. So I had said that there was 2 holdouts at the time we recorded the original program, Delta and FedEx, and actually United at the time. I think I mentioned United back in the program. And at the time, United had just changed theirs. But there's one holdout left, and that's FedEx, which is a major airline. FedEx and UPS, Delta, and American are all majors. And the only one left is FedEx. Out of the domestic stuff, there's Emirates.
Didn't I hear from a friend there some insider information that FedEx
they did change something. They did change something.
Yeah, they're dropping a written test, right?
Yeah. So FedEx, you got to understand with these major airlines, there was a time where you couldn't even have enough flight time or credentials on your resume to be competitive until you were in your 40s. That's when people went to the majors. That's why all the pay scales are based on 12 years, because you would get there in your 40s and you would retire mandatory at 60. Now that's been moved to a mandatory retirement of 65. And the way the industry has grown, people are getting to the majors in their early 30s. So everything's changed, but yeah, FedEx, historically FedEx, UPS, Delta, these are the hardest interviews in the industry. I mean, they're a couple days long. There's psych evaluations, there's written tests, there's the degree requirement. They put you in a simulator and you fly. They put you in what they call the paper tiger, which is basically like a mock-up of a cockpit, and have you run scenarios like, oh, you just took off from here, you're halfway there, you have this many minutes in fuel, you were told the airport is closed, what's your next move? They give you stuff like that. You're being evaluated during an interview, and there's a HR portion of the interview. There's a panel interview with some of the line pilots and chief pilots. I mean, they're looking for perfect human specimens to fly their machines around, not just people with a pulse.
Right.
We're slowly moving off the perfect human specimen and, heading towards people with pulse.
That's right.
I mean, these machines are getting easier to fly too. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But anywho, FedEx did change one requirement. The degree requirement is still there, but you used to have to take a written test, which was basically, it was a mimic. It was a mirror image of what I've been told is the ATP written test, which is no joke. That is probably the hardest out of any of the pilot certificate written tests.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
It's got some oddball questions on there. It's got stuff you don't necessarily deal with on your day to day, because at that level, there's a dispatcher doing some of that kind of stuff and whatever. It's complicated. It gets high altitude aerodynamics, jet aerodynamics, load and balancing of, large aircraft. Yeah. So anyway, they just removed that. That test no longer exists. And I don't know that that's going to spike a whole bunch more people applying there or anything. They may have just did it because it was a silly hurdle that they were making their applicants go through, because you do need to take time and study all that stuff. It's not, I would say a good 60-70% of that knowledge is not something you just readily have available. It's something you're going to want to study. But yeah, so they removed that, probably just to make it easier on everybody and keep things flowing. But that's good to hear. I mean, it's happening everywhere. This shortage is back full blast, not going anywhere.
Yeah, I guess what I would add to what you said, Sean, is just to kind of get into the history on the podcast, since it is our 40th podcast.
Yeah.
But this kind of goes with what you said about the 4-year degree thing. But I think we're getting a ton of new viewers. I think we've got 100 or so in the last week, or subscribers in the last week or so.
Yeah, just on YouTube. That's YouTube numbers. Yeah, I mean, we're on like 9 or 11 different platforms. So
yeah. So a lot of those people are going back and they're looking at our old content that was filmed, a year or two ago. But I think I think that gives us some credibility, because we made predictions all throughout the pandemic. Yeah. I mean, before the pandemic, we had predictions, and then while it was going on, how it was going to affect the industry, and they all held out, to be true. So hopefully that gives people the assurance, if they're looking at maybe buying the Pro Pilot Playbook or continue to watch us, that we're not making this up. I mean, we do have a history now.
Right.
We're starting to gain some traction. So
it's a good point.
I mean, our goal here is to help you guys. We want new pilots to really get the word out. I don't think a lot of people really know these rapid changes that are occurring in the industry that are allowing this unprecedented opportunity. And we think there's tons of people out there that just are dreaming of the skies and think that it's unattainable, and it's really not.
Yep, it's only getting easier, and the opportunities are getting greater on the back end of the easiness you're going to go through.
Yeah,
I can't say it's getting cheaper, but because that's not the case. But we, if you pay attention to what we're saying here on the podcast, and we'll drop you some tips on how to save a little money at it.
Yeah. But Andrew, really, that was just a fantastic email.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, the regret of not doing it. I mean, I don't think either one of us could imagine what our life would be like if we wouldn't have taken that leap, and we certainly wouldn't be talking about flying to the Super Bowl and all these crazy things, But it's great. So hopefully this is encouraging to our viewers.
Yep. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you hopefully next week also with another episode. We'll answer some more questions, and for all those Cincinnati fans, hoo-day!
Thanks a lot. Good luck to the Bengals.